Let's begin as usual with the recitation of paying homage to the Buddha in Pali. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Hello, it's Venerable Masami again. This is our fifth lecture. I'm talking to you from Shan State, Taungji, and of course, Shan State Buddhist University. Today, in a series of 6 lectures, today is the 5th one. And it's about consciousness. Consciousness. As you know, as we discussed in the first lecture, the 4 ultimate realities, consciousness, citta, the first one. The second one is mental factors, cittasika. The third one is matters or materiality, that's rupa. And the last one is nibbana. The first way, if you remember, we talk about two truths as a foundation philosophy of Abhidhamma. After that, for 3 weeks, for 3 lectures, okay, we dedicate ourselves to understanding of mental factors or cittasika. Cittasika. According to the compendium, the text that we use as a textbook, according to the compendium, okay, consciousness comes first, and then the 52 mental factors, cittasika. That's the order in the book. But instead of following exactly the order of the book, I have chosen to start with the 52 mental factors, cittasika. Actually, we spend more time on that than any of the ultimate relative factors. The reason we discover today is that if we understand those mental factors, it will be a lot easier for us to understand different types of consciousness. We have already seen in the cittasika, and the 52 cittasikas are divided ethically as unwholesome, wholesome. Okay, the 14 unwholesome cittasika and 52, the so-called beautiful cittasika. And we also have 13 cittasika, which can go either way. And we call them universal. The same way applying to the way we look at consciousness. Unwholesome and wholesome. Okay? Being unwholesome, being wholesome, I mean, this is ethics. We are talking about ethics. How our mind, the function of our mind, the function of our psychology has an impact on ethics. So today, when we look at the different types of cittasika, one way of understanding consciousness is to look at, okay, how the function of our consciousness affects our ethical behavior. So you will have description like unwholesome consciousness, wholesome consciousness, something like that. But that's one way of looking at consciousness. Okay. The suttas say that that there is only one consciousness. And then, okay, how do we get different types of consciousness if there's only one? It is because the combination of different jitasikas kind of you pick here and there, okay, relevant jitasikas based on ethics, and you get different combination. And those different combination, they count 89 types of chitta, up to 89 types of chittas. So one aspect of analyzing chitta is through ethics. The second one is through, if you like, Indian, or if you like, Buddhist cosmology. Buddhist cosmology also looks at the world, looks at the cosmos based on the different statuses of the mind. Okay, now if you look at this table, don't look at the detail. Okay, first just read the title, 89 chitta. Forget about 121, 121. Forget about that. Okay, I come back to that later. If I have time, if I don't, you will be able to read it yourself, understand it. 89 chitta, how do we get that? First is based on okay, we go to cosmology first. Cosmology is a sense sphere. And after that, you go down and you see fine material sphere. And you go down further, you find immaterial sphere. These three, how do we understand them? Sense sphere is the realm where we live, that we use our senses, our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Okay, we use them to operate. And the use of those senses affects the quality of our mind. Affect the quality of our mind. Because our mind is affected by what we see, by what we hear, by what we experience. Okay, if we hear positive words, then we produce wholesome consciousness and wholesome cittasika. But if we hear constant criticism, negative criticism, for example, then our consciousness, cannot be wholesome anymore. We are affected we get traumatized and like that. So you can see we use our senses to connect with our environment, human environment, ecological environment, and we're affected by them. So this is what we call sense sphere. We use our full 6 senses, okay, not 5, 6 senses. We consider the mind to be the 6th one, 6th sense. And fine material, what do we mean by fine material? Well, it can still be here in the human world, but our mind is elevated, okay, through advanced concentration called jhana, okay, jhana meditation. And that 5 material sphere consciousness is defined by the factors of meditation achievement, the so-called jhana. Very fine and concentrated state of mind. And even that, even in that type of consciousness, okay, you still distinguish, you still differentiate between course 1, more fine state of consciousness, the finest level of consciousness, and like that, okay, you define them into 4. After that, we have another sphere, which is immaterial sphere. In the immaterial sphere, it's supposed that our physical senses cease to work if we achieve that consciousness state here in human world. Only the mind is working. When the mind is working, that is why it's called immaterial, as opposed to a fine material. Yeah. These sense sphere also have materials, but we don't call them material because material senses are senses. They are not refined. They are not refined by meditative qualities. That is why we call material sphere as fine material sphere. This is the English translation. In Pali, it just means material. There's no, the word fine is not there. Okay, the word fine is not there. In Pali, and if I give you Pali terminology, sense sphere, chitta, sense, this is called karma. Karma is okay. We are attached to senses. We also operate through senses. The karma, okay, karma, K-A-M-A. The second one, fine material, this is rupa. Rupa, R-U-P-A, rupa. Is meditative, they are meditative states. The second, the last one, immaterial sphere, this is, they are also meditative states, even a lot finer than fine material states. So basically, we look at, Buddhism look at cosmology from a spiritual point of view. From a spiritual point of view. When we talk about fine material and immaterial sphere, we can also talk about the Brahma world based on the Indian general Indian cosmological understanding and also Buddhist cosmological understanding. Okay, it can be the world of Brahma. But Buddhist understanding on the Indian cosmological understanding are different in the sense that Buddhism looks at the existence of cosmology as being the result of our accumulated mental habit. Okay, our accumulated mental habit. But these three sense sphere, five material sphere, and immaterial sphere, these three spheres, these three realms, they still belong to mundane. In some of them, you have very high meditative achievement, that's true. But those meditations, they have not resulted in total purification of the mind. They have just helped us to achieve suspension of hindrances to the mind, just temporary suspension. That suspension, it may be decades, it may be even lifelong. But in the next life, because you have not got rid of the roots of the unwholesome Chitasika, unwholesome mental factors. Yeah, you can, those negative Chitasika, they still have opportunity to come back and grow. That is why in sense sphere, five material sphere, immaterial sphere, they are called mundane citta, lokiya, L-O-K-I-Y-A, lokiya. It's mundane. As opposed to supramundane. Supramundane, in a sense of spiritually not being affected by negative emotions anymore. People got rid of negative emotion by uprooting them on the gradual path. So 4 stages, as you can see over there. So just a big idea, just a big picture I'm trying to give you. If you got rid of certain negative qualities, you achieve the first stage of supramundane consciousness. You got rid of more negative factors, and you achieve further. For example, like that. Once you have got rid of all of them, you achieve arahantship, the highest one. So if you look at this table, basically from spiritual point of view, we look at Chitasika because we are interested in ontology, there's liberation. So we look at consciousness differentiating it into 2, mundane and supramundane. Mundane, okay, you can see sense sphere, 5 material sphere, and immaterial sphere. Supramundane has where we can make use of meditative power to actually purify our mind once and for all. Not just suspension of negative factors. So this is cosmology, okay, cosmological approach to consciousness. In that cosmological approach, because from the beginning, Buddhist cosmology takes spiritual concern into central consideration, is central interest. The purpose of looking at cosmology is to actually look at different stages of the mind and how can we purify it once and for all. So after the cosmological approach, we actually have ethical approach. So under the sense sphere chitta, okay, if you look at that, you can see the subtitle, they call unwholesome chitta, unwholesome consciousnesses. And then you jump one, okay, you jump rootless chitta, you go to sense sphere beautiful chitta. Beautiful, we have already seen in the Chitta, beautiful means wholesome. Okay, so here you have unwholesome consciousnesses and wholesome consciousnesses. Okay. Then in the middle that we have jammed, it's called rootless chitta. Okay, rootless chitta. What does it mean? We have to go back to being unwholesome and wholesome. Okay, the chitta are unwholesome because their roots are unwholesome. We already know the roots of unwholesome chitta: greed, hatred, delusion, lobha, dosa, and moha. So any consciousness that is rooted in them is unwholesome. Then wholesome is, of course, the opposite. Wholesome consciousness. They are based on generosity, they are based on loving kindness, they are based on wisdom. The three positive roots. So if we can cultivate, if we can exercise our mind in a way that we develop these wholesome roots, then our consciousness will also be wholesome consciousness. Here, consciousness, I didn't define earlier. Consciousness is the awareness of an object. To be exact, okay, to be precise, it's the process of awareness of an object. In front of you, you have a computer. So being aware of that means your consciousness is working. But only bare consciousness is a bare awareness. You have no coloring, okay? Good, bad, you have no such thing with consciousness. Then why do we have like getting upset, getting agitated, being joyful, being happy, being excited? Why do we get different aspects of consciousness, aspects of the mind? This is because the Cetasika, the 52 Cetasika, they come in and they change the function of the consciousness. So the makeup of the mind is actually the makeup of Cetasika, the makeup of mental factors. That is why it's very important to study the 52 Cetasikas first. rootless, let's go back there. Rootless, chitta, rootless consciousnesses then, find this, it means here, you don't have active root consciousnesses, roots of consciousness. Unwholesome root, the three unwholesome root, they are not active. The wholesome, the three wholesome root, they are not active either. Simply, these consciousnesses, they come about being result, as a result. Okay, as a result. Those 18, they don't have roots at all. At the moment of those consciousnesses functioning, we don't have roots being active. So this is to give you an overview of the 89 chitta. We haven't counted. How do we get 89? Then let's look at that. You can look at the table. The mundane chitta is 81, supramundane 8. So 89 already. 89. Then how do we get 81? 81. If you divide into 3 spheres, sense sphere, you have 54, 5 material sphere, you have 15, and immaterial sphere, you have 12. I hope so far you can follow me. Let me use this to go a little bit into details. If you look at 54 sense sphere consciousnesses, 54, that's all you can have. Okay, maximum possible combination, maximum possibility of combination of Chittasika to try to turn Chitta or consciousness into many different types. You can only have 54 in total. Among the 54, the unwholesome Chittas are 12. 12 unwholesome. Okay. 18 rootless Chittasika. They are the results. Okay, rootless. And then the beautiful one, the wholesome one, in the sense sphere, they are 24. I don't know if you remember, among the 52 Chittasika, there are 14 unwholesome Chittasika, and there are 25 wholesome, beautiful ones. So the good ones outweigh the bad ones. Okay, outweigh the bad ones, 14 to 24 or 25 in the Chittasikas. Today, look at this again. Unwholesome, we have 12. Forget about rootless because ethically it's not applicable. There's no ethical accumulation. There's no ethical value in the rootless chitta. But the ethically applicable one, the wholesome and unwholesome, or the unwholesome and the beautiful, you look at them. The unwholesome are 12. The beautiful or the wholesome are 24. It's double. That is why we have more possibilities to develop good consciousness. Good consciousness. But he, just as in the Chittasika, the unwholesome one come first. Why? Because we need to know them. Without knowing them, we can't avoid the trap. The psychological trap of anger, of jealousy, of fear, of agitation, this thing, okay. They can be very active, like a whirlpool. So we need to be aware of them. We need to know them first. We need to know them so that we can avoid them, so that we are mindful when they arise in our mind and regulate our emotion, regulate our thought. It's full of number 12, 18, and 24. So altogether 54. In the unwholesome chitta, okay, you can see greed, hatred, and delusion. So it's based on those three. We have already seen them in the Jidasika. Okay, greed, hatred, and delusion. We group them. If you remember, we group them. We group the 14 Jidasika into 3 groups. In the greed group, we have 3 over there in the Jidasika. In the hatred, we have 4. And then the rest we have delusion. Delusion, 4 of them are universal, 3 of them, they are not universal. They just belong to delusion. And here again, greed-rooted consciousness. You can see root, the word root is used here. Greed-rooted chitta, hatred-rooted chitta, and delusion-rooted chitta. The possible I don't know if you call this mutation, the possible, the combination, okay, combination of different Chittasikas operating with consciousness means altogether we can have 12 unwholesome consciousnesses. 8 of them are rooted in greed, 2 rooted in hatred, 2 rooted in delusion. So with this, I think I'd like to go to the next one, the next table, which is unwholesome Chittasika. Levin here, if you can help me. Okay. You can see the table 1 to 12. The first 8 are rooted in greed. The second, 9 and 10 in hatred, 11 and 12 delusion. Okay, so the first column define the root. Which type of consciousness we have depends on the root. So we got to understand those roots. Root means they are deeply rooted. They are in our subconscious mind. They are our second nature. So deeply rooted. That is why we call them root. The second column is emotional quality. It's quality of emotion. It's called feeling there. Feeling is also Jidasika, as you know. Is one of the universal Jidasika. So when we are greedy, it's possible that we feel joyful. We feel joyous half of the time. The other half of the time, we feel equanimity. We feel equanimous here is not the same quality of equanimous in being equanimous in meditation. Okay. This equanimity has a sense of being indifferent. The third column is about view. About view, or maybe we can say the third and the fourth, okay? The third and the fourth, they are about view, about our attitude, if you like, the way we look at our action, the way we look at our feeling. So half of the time, greed has the possibility of being associated with wrong view, and the other half without wrong view. And some people here greed, of course, we define greed as affecting other people's life, business, work, okay, in an unethical way. So that's greed. And some people, they think ethically it's all right to do it that way. So for them, that greed is associated with wrong view. But some people know it's wrong, it's unethical, but they just want to do it. So those people, they don't have wrong view. Actually, they have right view. They have right view. But they have, if you like, wrong consciousness, like that. So half of the time, greed-rooted consciousness is associated with wrong view, and half of the time with right view. Or we can say at least the absence of wrong view. The last one, prompted, and no, not prompted. Those two columns, number 5 and number 6. Number 5 and number 6 column. Prompted means, okay, you are being prompted. You are being persuaded to feel that way. Okay, to feel greedy. Unethically acquiring something, for example. And because of sometimes a bad associate, sometimes because you are forced to do so, sometimes because you are being persuaded that you can do it. So half of the time, greed is associated with being prompted. Okay, being prompted. It's not out of your own initiative. Instead, somebody else initiates it and persuades you to follow. But half of the time, there's a possibility that greed, okay, is unprompted. Greed is our own initiative. It comes from our own thinking, our own belief. So what are the Chitasikas, okay, to form different mix-up of greed-rooted consciousness? One is feeling. In the feeling, you have you have joy and equanimity. Then with view, you have the presence of wrong view and absence of wrong view. The feeling and view. And the last one is you either do it, you either feel that with your own initiative without being prompted, or you do so because you are persuaded, being prompted. So if you read that way, okay, this table, if you understand this table is going to be a lot easier. The reason we grade them like this, we differentiate them with different combination is, for example, rooted, greed-rooted consciousness with joy, with wrong view, unprompted. Unprompted means, okay, your initiative. That's the strongest. In terms of karma, okay, that's the strongest. The greed-rooted consciousness, yes, the root is negative. But if the feeling is equanimity, means emotionally, you are not as excited, you are not as strong, you don't have strong feeling. So in that sense, your greed-rooted consciousness is less severe. But even among the greed, among the equanimity associated greed, you can still differentiate them again with view. You feel equanimous and you don't have wrong view. If you don't have wrong view, as you can see, number 7 and number 8. And then in terms of karma, result, that will not be as strong. With number 7, number 8, the difference is what? The difference is, one is, okay, you are being persuaded. The other is you do so out of your own initiative. If we make a mistake, or if we do something bad out of our own initiative and we believe our action is right, okay, we feel good about that, that you can see even in the eyes of the law, okay, the punishment is more severe. In the people who regret, who show remorse in the court of law, okay, so those people, they don't feel proud of having done that, they don't feel good, they don't feel joyful. So if they show remorse, the court of law decides differently. Okay, you get a more lenient sentence. If we understand it that way, it's a lot easier. Then hatred rooted, okay, always in terms of emotion, is always, you are always displeased. It's about rejection. Displeasure means about rejection. and there is aversion. Of course, this hatred, sometimes people comes and brainwashes, somebody comes and brainwashes you. As a result, you feel negative towards somebody, you hate somebody. It often happens between two parents who are divorced. And when they talk about their children, sometimes the mother would talk negatively about the father, and the father would do the same. And the child would be confused. But if the child lives with the mother and hardly has an access to the father, or maybe just occasionally, and if the mother manipulates the child, talking only the shortcoming of the father, then the child is going to grow up suspecting or maybe hating the father. So the child is being prompted, being persuaded to hate, to feel displeased about his or her father. The mother is the one who prompts, who persuades. It can be the father, okay, against the mother. Or it can be one group of people against another group of people, one people of political persuasion against the other. So you can see how we are being prompted, how we are being persuaded to feel a certain way towards a certain group of people. First, we feel displeased, then we feel aversion, then we develop hatred. The last one is delusion. Delusion. In terms of emotional quality, is about equanimity. In terms of the essence of Chitta-Sikha, the appearance is about doubt, is about restlessness. Is about restlessness. So for them, we don't look at them in terms of view, because delusion means is wrong view already. There's no question of that. And because of that, we don't talk about being prompted and unprompted either. So this is unwholesome consciousness. I think we are almost an hour now. Let me go quickly to the 24 beautiful citta. Yeah, this one. For the consciousness to be beautiful, we look at them. First is, as in the first column, we look at the emotional quality, joy and equanimity. When you're doing something good, but if you don't feel so joyful, just so, then the quality of your wholesome consciousness is not as excellent, okay, as the joyful one. In meditation, okay, equanimity is higher, is superb, but in the sense sphere, being joyful is considered to be sharper and stronger than the equanimity. The second column is when we do something good, whether we understand it or not. So it's a whether it's associated with knowledge. You're doing something good, but because other people say you have to do it. Many people, I mean, everybody pays taxes. And not everybody understands the benefit of paying taxes, the importance of paying taxes. And sometimes they have to be prompted by the law. But some people know. The American investor Warren Buffett, he thinks he should pay more taxes because at the present, the law allows him to pay in terms of percentage less than his secretary. So he thinks, this law should be changed, and people who earn $1 million and more should be paying more taxes. So he would pay taxes without being prompted. But some other people, they're just looking for tax card, okay, and like that, and how to manipulate the accounts, the auditing, like that. Yes, they are paying taxes, but they don't feel joyful in that. And certainly, they don't have the intellectual support positive one about paying taxes. If we understand that, okay, we are so connected, good or bad, we are so connected. That is why it's the duty of everyone to help one another, because we cannot exist alone, either as a family, as a person, or even as a country. It's not possible to exist anymore, in isolation. If we understand the law of interdependence deeply, and then we do our part. I have seen many people, who feel very proud, who feel very good being taxpayers, and they behave very honestly. Then you have being prompted and unprompted. Being prompted and unprompted. Those three quality: feeling, knowledge, and being prompted and unprompted. The highest quality among these eight is being joyful, being associated with knowledge, meaning understanding. You understand what you're doing, you also feel joyful about that, and no one pushes you to do this. You do this out of your own initiative. So that's the grading of the qualities. The grading of the quality also affects karma, okay, the quality of our karma. And how do we get 24 beautiful chittas? Again, here we look at the nature of psychology. One is, okay, when we say beautiful, here, 8 of them, they have the roots very active. The wholesome roots are very active. So we actually call them wholesome sense sphere, beautiful chitta. We add the word wholesome. Then another 8, another set, exactly, they look exactly the same. But they differ in the sense that the roots of the mind, the wholesome root, they are not active anymore. They are just the resultant consciousness. Resultant consciousness. And another type, another 8, is the kind of consciousness that happened in Arahant. In Arahant. For them, the wholesome roots are active, but they don't have the karmic potency anymore. Karmically, it's not potent anymore because they don't expect anything when they do good. They just do good because it's good to do that. Not because they expect any results, anything in return. Actually, many of them, they hate anything in return. They hate the results of karma following them. They want to liberate themselves from that. So for them, we call them mere action, mere good action. In Pali, we call them kiriya. The result them, we call them vipaka. And then the wholesome consciousnesses with active roots, we call them kusala, or wholesome. So in the same way, living if you can go to 15 fine sphere, another table. Yeah. Here, you also have three types of, three differentiation. You differentiate the 5 material consciousnesses. Actually, there are only 5 of them, but they become 15 because 5 of them, they have the root chittas active. Another 5, the root chittas are not active, they're just resultant. Another 5, they happen in Arahant. Okay, with no results, because they don't expect any results anymore in their mind. So long we expect results, the results will come. And here you have 5 jhana, 5 stages. You're talking about the 5 jhana factors. You can see together with, in the second column underneath, you have 5 sub-columns. And they describe the 5 factors of jhana meditation. The first jhana, you have all the 5. The second jhana, you have only 4. The first one, is the first one is drop. The third jhana, you drop one more. The fourth jhana, you drop one more. Only two, happiness and one-pointedness, meaning very strong concentration. The fifth jhana, the last one, you have equanimity, the highest one. And one-pointedness. I mentioned earlier, in the sense sphere, being joyful is better than being equanimous in terms of quality, in emotion quality. But in the meditative state of mind, being equanimous is better than being joyful. I think I will just go quickly to the next one, the immaterial. Another table, living here. Yes, thank you. If you compare this with the last one, the five material, we form different mix-up, different combination with the 5 factors of jhana. But this one, we are not talking about different factors of the mind. We are talking about different objects. So when you change the objects, you change 4 times and you have 4 types of immaterial sphere consciousness. So this is an overview, a big picture. And here you only have 4. This is where the roots of wholesome consciousness are active. So they are called kusala, wholesome. Another 4 immaterial sphere citta, they are just resultant. Their roots are not active anymore. Yet another 4, they happen in the minds of the Arahant, and they are called Kiriya. So you have Kusala, Vipaka, Kiriya. That's in Pali, wholesome, resultant, and mere action. The last one, living here, the 4 on the supramundane. Okay, this one, okay, you grade them according to the achievement. This spiritual achievement. What to achieve? In order to, well, we call this achievement in English, actually, is about getting rid of things, is about abandoning things, is about giving up things. The more you give up, the more you go higher. Okay. We talk about 10 kinds of factors, 10 kinds of defilements. If you give up 3, for example, you achieve the first one. If you weaken 2 more, you achieve the second one. If you get rid of them altogether, then you achieve the third one. If you get rid of all of them, then you achieve arhatship. That sort of thing. Okay, I think I have spoken long enough for today. Maybe I take 2 or 3 questions. I've been, okay, I told Odin earlier, this is my 4th lecture today, so I'm a little bit tired, but I will still take some questions, maybe 2 or 3 questions.
So I will ask the questions for you, Venerable.
Okay.
So we have a question here from Matthew. Thank you, first of all. Are chittas, which are greed-rooted but not associated with wrong view, still based in ignorance? So, if so, I assume here the ignorance is in deliberately ignoring our own right view. Is this understanding correct? Thanks.
partly I mentioned earlier that with the wrong view means it's not with the okay, with the wrong view means okay, we don't justify our action that our action is good. If we justify greed, then obviously that's with wrong view. Then the question is whether moha or delusion is there. Delusion, in a sense of restlessness, in a sense of at least in a sense of restlessness, and also in a sense of not being able to decide the appropriate action. Even if mentally, okay, we think this is wrong, there is still some delusion, some moha that pushes us to go ahead with that wrong action. Of course, basically, in theory, when we discuss Chitasika, we talk about moha being everywhere. But moha, we distinguish them. What kind of moha? One is conscience, okay? We call hiri and ottappa. Hiri and ottappa. Actually, ahirika and anottappa. Not caring about your dignity. You don't feel any shame about doing this. The second one, anottappa, means you have no regard for the consequences on other people. So we take these two as conscience in Western psychology, conscience. So conscience is defined in Buddhist psychology in these two, ahirika and anottappa, or hiri and ottappa. Whether we have wrong view or not, this lack of conscience is there. Lack of conscience. Another one is anottappa. Anottappa, at the time of doing that action, at the time of having that greater consciousness, we have no regret. We may regret later, not at that moment. At that moment, it's called anottappa. So those universal, unwholesome four Chitasikas, they are there. They are there. And they don't talk about belief. They don't talk about view. You see. Yeah. They rather talk about the other characteristic of the mind at that time, like conscience. Okay, Lavinia, any more question?
Yes, we have another question here from Matthew again. So in last week's talk, you referred to dukkha as problem. Do you think the term problem helps to explain dukkha better than the term suffering?
Sometimes that's how I find it. That's how I find it. I started having this thought, okay, maybe more than 20 years ago when I started listening to Ajahn Sumedho's talk. Now, one thing that was when you don't cling to conditions, dukkha is not problem. Meaning, what we usually consider as problem is not a problem anymore. By its own nature, it causes inconveniences, but it doesn't affect the mind, the quality of the mind anymore. I think that's what he wants to say. So from that time, I start using the word problem just to simplify. But the word suffering makes sense a lot of the time as well. The word suffering. The reason that the very reason that we are not comfortable with the word suffering is suffering. You see, is suffering. And so is it long? Is it long? These are problems of translation, not just problem of translation, but I think is also a psychological problem. Many people wouldn't accept anger as suffering, but by the time they accept anger as a suffering, okay, they wouldn't justify it anymore. Some people, they accept anger as a problem. To that extent, they are going to manage, they are going to try to manage their anger. But by the time you accept anger as suffering, you will want to get rid of your anger. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Both words, problem and suffering, you know, they have their own places. Thank you. I take one last question if you have.
Thank you. So the last question for you, Venerable, is from Julita. How Bhavanga arise upon heart base in fine material and immaterial sphere if there is no rupa? Do Bhavanga cognize object?
I hesitate to entertain this question because we have not discussed the Vichitta, the thought process. I think it is a lot simpler to look at the chapter 5 of the compendium and to specifically look at the thought process in the jhana. I just want to say this much because with consideration to most people, okay, and this is meant to be introduction, so I just want to confine myself to what we say we are going to do. Odin was saying earlier, if things go all right, okay, according to what we expect, there might be another series of Abhidhamma lecture. So, if we can bring in parts of the Abhidhamma related to the Vichitta, which your question pertains to, then we might be able to discuss a bit more in detail. So I just want to say this much. Because last year, my birthday, we had a conference here at Shan State Buddhist University, and the whole day was devoted to Bhavanga. So it's a big thing. From meditation point of view and from scripture point of view, you know, we even had some debate on that. Yeah, but I just want to share with you this general information. Thank you.